The sun was a dying ember, sinking into the jagged horizon of the city, casting long shadows over the cracked pavement of 17th Street. Lila stood at the corner, her thin jacket pulled tight against the evening chill, her breath visible in the crisp air. She was 23, but the weight of the world made her feel ancient, her eyes scanning the street for a sign, any sign, that tonight might be different. Her stomach growled, a cruel reminder of the empty fridge back at the tiny apartment she shared with her younger brother, Ethan. The eviction notice was taped to the door, its red ink screaming urgency. She'd tried everything, waitressing, odd jobs, even begging, but the money never stretched far enough. Tonight, desperation had driven her here, to this corner where women sold pieces of themselves to survive. A car slowed, its headlights pinning her like a moth to a board, and a man leaned out, his voice greasy with intent. Lila's heart pounded, her fingers trembling as she stepped forward, forcing a smile that felt like betrayal. She wasn't ready, not really, but Ethan's face, pale, hungry, trusting, kept her feet moving. The man's eyes raked over her, and she swallowed the bile rising in her throat. Then, a roar split the night, a motorcycle, its engine snarling like an angry beast, screeched to a stop beside her. The rider, clad in black leather, his face obscured by a tinted helmet, swung off the bike with a predator's grace. The man in the car cursed, tires squealing as he sped away, leaving Lila frozen, caught between fear and curiosity. The rider pulled off his helmet, revealing sharp green eyes and a jaw dusted with stubble. He was young, maybe late 20s, with a scar slicing through his left eyebrow, giving him a dangerous edge. "You don't belong here," he said, his voice low but firm, like he was stating a fact, not offering an opinion. Lila bristled, her pride flaring despite her situation. "You don't know me," she snapped, but her voice wavered, betraying the exhaustion that clung to her bones. She turned to walk away, but his hand caught her arm, not rough, but insistent, like he could see the cliff she was teetering on. "I know enough," he said, his gaze holding hers, searching, as if he could see the weight of her choices. "Name's Jace. Come with me. You don't need to do this." His words were a lifeline, but Lila had learned long ago that trust was a luxury she couldn't afford. She yanked her arm free, her heart racing. "Why should I? You're just another guy thinking he can save me, or worse." Her voice was sharp, but her eyes flicked to the motorcycle, its sleek lines promising escape, even if just for a moment. Jace didn't flinch, didn't push. He just stood there, the streetlight carving shadows across his face. "I'm not here to save you," he said, "but I can give you a choice. Coffee shop, 2 blocks down. You talk, I listen. No strings." Lila hesitated, the cold seeping deeper into her skin. Ethan's face flashed in her mind again, and she thought of the empty pantry, the landlord's threats. She didn't know Jace, didn't know if he was a hero or a wolf in disguise, but the idea of a warm coffee shop, even for an hour, was enough to make her nod. The coffee shop was a small, dimly lit place called Rosie's, its windows fogged with steam and the scent of burnt coffee beans. Jace led her to a corner booth, sliding in across from her as the waitress, a tired woman with a kind smile, brought them menus. Lila's hands shook as she wrapped them around a chipped mug, the heat grounding her. Jace didn't ask questions right away, just sipped his black coffee and watched her with those piercing eyes. "You're not the first person I've seen on that corner," he said finally, his tone careful, like he was stepping around broken glass. "But, you're the first who looked like they were fighting a war with themselves." Lila's throat tightened, and she stared into her coffee, the dark liquid reflecting her distorted face. "You don't know what it's like," she whispered. "To have no options, to have someone depending on you." She thought of Ethan, his wide eyes when she tucked him in, promising things would get better. Jace leaned back, his leather jacket creaking. "I know more than you think," he said, his voice softer now, carrying a weight of its own. "I've been where you are, not that corner, but close enough. Sometimes you just need someone to remind you there's another way." Lila wanted to argue, to tell him he was naive, but something in his tone stopped her. There was no pity in his eyes, only a quiet understanding that made her feel seen, not judged. She took a sip of her coffee, the bitterness grounding her, and for the first time in months, she felt a flicker of hope. They talked for hours, the coffee shop emptying around them as the night deepened. Lila told him about Ethan, about their parents' death 3 years ago in a car crash, about the bills that kept piling up. Jace listened, his face unreadable but his attention unwavering, like her words mattered. He didn't offer empty promises or quick fixes, just shared bits of his own story, a runaway at 16, a brother he'd lost to the streets, a life pieced back together through sheer stubbornness. "I run a garage now," he said, almost as an afterthought. "Fix bikes, cars, anything with an engine. It's not much, but it's honest." Lila's eyes drifted to his hands, calloused and stained with grease, and she wondered what it would be like to build something instead of tearing herself apart. "Why are you doing this?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "Why me?" Jace shrugged, a ghost of a smile tugging at his lips. "Maybe I see a bit of myself in you. Or maybe I just hate seeing someone as strong as you think this is the only way." His words hit her like a punch, and she blinked back tears she hadn't realized were there. When they left Rosie's, the streets were quiet, the city holding its breath. Jace offered her a ride home on his motorcycle, and though her instinct screamed caution, she climbed on, her arms wrapping around his waist. The engine roared to life, and for a moment, the world blurred away, leaving only the wind and the hum of the bike. Her apartment was a crumbling walk up on the edge of town, the kind of place where hope went to die. Jace didn't comment on the peeling paint or the flickering hallway light, just walked her to her door. "Think about what I said," he told her, handing her a crumpled business card with the name, Jace's Garage, scrawled on it. Lila didn't sleep that night, her mind replaying their conversation, the card burning a hole in her pocket. Ethan woke up at dawn, his small frame curled under a thin blanket, and she made him toast with the last of the bread. His smile, so rare these days, was enough to make her decision. She showed up at Jace's garage the next day, her heart in her throat. The place was a chaos of tools and engine parts, the air thick with oil and metal. Jace looked up from a bike he was working on, his expression unreadable. "You here to fix something or break it?" he asked, a teasing edge to his voice. Lila squared her shoulders, her voice steady despite the nerves. "I'm here to learn," she said. "If you'll teach me." She didn't know if she was asking for a job or something bigger, but Jace's nod felt like a door opening, just a crack. He started her on small tasks, cleaning tools, organizing parts, but Lila was quick, her hands steady despite her inexperience. She soaked up every lesson, every curse-laced tip Jace threw her way, and for the first time in years, she felt like she was building something. The garage became her refuge, a place where she could forget the corner and the choices she'd almost made. Ethan started coming by after school, his eyes wide as he watched Jace work, his small hands itching to help. Jace was patient, showing him how to hold a wrench, how to listen to an engine's rhythm. Lila watched them, her chest tight with something she hadn't felt in years, gratitude, but the past wasn't done with her. One night, as she locked up the garage, a familiar car rolled by, its headlights pinning her again. The man from the corner, his face twisted with recognition, called out, his words slurred and cruel. Lila's blood ran cold, her hands shaking as she fumbled with the keys. Jace appeared beside her, his presence a quiet storm. "Get lost," he told the man, his voice low but carrying a threat that made the air crackle. The car peeled away, and Jace turned to Lila, his eyes searching hers. "You okay?" he asked, and she nodded, though her heart was still racing. The incident shook her, a reminder of how close she'd come to losing herself. But Jace didn't push, didn't ask for details she wasn't ready to share. Instead, he handed her a wrench and pointed to a bike that needed tuning. "Focus on this," he said. "The rest can wait." Weeks turned into months, and Lila found a rhythm at the garage, her hands growing as calloused as Jace's, her confidence building with every engine she helped fix. Ethan started smiling more, his laughter echoing through the shop as he trailed after Jace like a shadow. Lila began to believe in second chances, in the idea that she could be more than her mistakes. One evening, as the sun dipped low, painting the garage in gold, Jace called her over to a bike he'd been working on, a sleek black machine that looked like it could outrun the wind. "It's yours," he said, tossing her the keys. "If you want it." Lila's breath caught, her fingers closing around the keys. "I can't afford this," she said, but Jace just shrugged, his smile crooked and warm. "Consider it a bonus," he said. "You've earned it." She rode the bike that night, the city blurring past, the wind tearing away the last of her doubts. She wasn't just surviving anymore, she was living, building, fighting for something better. And as she pulled up to the apartment, Ethan waiting on the steps with a grin, she knew she'd never go back to that corner. Jace became a constant in their lives, not just a boss but a friend, someone who saw Lila's strength when she couldn't. The garage wasn't just a job, it was a lifeline, a place where she and Ethan could heal. And though the road ahead was still rough, Lila rode it with her head high, the roar of the engine drowning out the ghosts of her past. Years later, when Lila owned the garage, Jace long gone to chase his own ghosts, she'd stand at the door, watching the street where she'd once stood. She'd think of that night, the motorcycle screech, the man who'd stopped her fall. And she'd smile, knowing she'd found her way, not because someone saved her, but because she'd chosen to save herself.